I screamed that his love disgusted me and called him a pervert when he tried to hug me after a long day, and now he treats me like a stranger who doesn't deserve his touch anymore. My name's Lilith. I'm 26 and I've been with my boyfriend Dave, who's 28, for 2 years. I don't really know how to start this, but I feel like I need to vent because the situation we're in now leaves me confused, sad, and full of guilt. When I met Dave, I thought he was an amazing guy. He was attentive, funny, very thoughtful, and most of all, very affectionate. From day one it was clear he was someone who enjoyed physical contact. He always sought to hug me, caress my hair, hold my hand, or just have me near. At first I loved it. I'm also an affectionate person, so having a partner who showed so much affection made me feel loved and secure. Also, Dave was one of those boyfriends who always looked at you like you were the most beautiful thing in the world. He'd kiss me out of nowhere, hug me from behind when I cooked, told me sweet things all the time. He made me feel desired. Even in the first few months, he had that habit of touching my leg while we talked or giving me playful pats on the butt. He did it with affection, not vulgarly, and I thought it was sweet, a way to show me he liked being with me. I thought that intense stage of so much physical affection was typical of the beginning of a relationship and that over time it would calm down a bit, as usually happens with almost all couples. But with Dave it wasn't like that. Months passed and he was still the same. Kisses every so often, hugs every 5 minutes, and a constant need for physical contact. I loved him and it didn't bother me, at least at first. After a year of dating we decided to move in together. For me, it was a big deal because I'd never lived with a partner before, but everything flowed well. At first, everything was perfect. We shared the bed, meals, TV shows, laughs, and also, of course, sex. Dave had incredible energy for that. During the first few months living together, we had sex almost every day, sometimes even more than once. And I'm not saying it as a complaint. At that time, I liked it too. I felt desired, loved, alive. It was the first time a man had kept me so interested for so long. My ex-boyfriends, over the months, tended to become more distant in that sense. After half a year, they no longer showed as much interest or said they were tired or that it was normal for the frequency to decrease. But with Dave, he always wanted to. I remember once I told my friends and one of them just said, "You're so lucky, friend. My boyfriend only touches me when I ask him to now." And we've been together for 3 years. He always says it's normal, that passion decreases over time, but I see there are guys who are still just as in love. And I felt lucky. I thought that having someone who desired me so much was a sign that he loved me deeply. I saw no problem. In fact, I like to brag that after so much time we were still with the same intensity as at the beginning, but little by little something began to change. Not in him, but in me. I started to feel tired, mentally exhausted. At work they started demanding more from me. I'm a secretary in a small company and with the cuts they made a few months ago I ended up taking on tasks that 2 other people used to do. I came home stressed, with a headache, with no energy for anything. I just wanted to rest. Dave, as always, greeted me with hugs, kisses, caresses. He'd prepare dinner, ask me how my day went, tried to relieve my stress, but sometimes his affection, though well-intentioned, overwhelmed me. Not because I didn't want it, but because I felt like I had no space to breathe. It was as if even affection became a burden. The first few times I tried to handle it delicately. If he approached for intimacy, I'd tell him I was tired, that maybe another day. He always understood, although I noticed a certain sadness in his eyes, as if he felt I was rejecting him. Still, his attitude didn't change. He remained the same attentive and affectionate guy as always. He hugged me more, kissed me more, as if he wanted to compensate for the distance that was starting to show in me. I loved him, but I started to feel overwhelmed. It bothered me that he always wanted to be glued to me, that he hugged me constantly, that he sought me out so much in bed. And it wasn't because I wasn't attracted to him anymore, I just didn't have the head for it. My body asked for rest and my mind silence, but he didn't fully understand it, or at least not the way I needed him to. I remember one day in particular, a few weeks ago, that changed everything. We'd gone several days without having sex. I was sick to my stomach and also overwhelmed with work. I barely slept. Dave had been understanding. He didn't pressure me, didn't insist, but that night he came up to me in bed. He hugged me from behind, started kissing my neck and caressing me. I was exhausted. I didn't feel like doing anything, and still he did it with such tenderness that I felt guilty for not reciprocating. But at that moment, instead of feeling love, I felt irritation. I don't know why. It was as if all the pressure from work, the tiredness, and the lack of space mixed together. I pushed him and yelled at him. "Get lost. You only think about that. You're a pervert." I'll never forget his face. He stood still as if he didn't understand what had just happened. Then he looked down and said in a low voice, "Love, I'm sorry, I thought you were better. I only do it because I love you. It's my way of showing you affection. Sorry." And I, still upset, replied something that now hurts me to remember. "Well, your way of showing affection disgusts me. It makes me uncomfortable. Leave me alone for a while." He didn't say anything else. He got out of bed, took a pillow, and went asleep on the sofa. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, feeling horrible. I couldn't believe what I'd said to him. It wasn't just the tone, it was the words. I knew I'd hurt him. The next day I tried to talk to him, but he was distant. He greeted me with a quick kiss on the forehead and went to work before me. Since then, everything changed. 2 weeks have passed since that night, and Dave hasn't touched me again. Nothing, not a caress, not a prolonged gaze, not an attempt to approach. Just a greeting kiss when he arrives or when we say goodbye. And that's it. He no longer sleeps on the sofa. He came back to bed a few days ago, but sleeps on his side without looking for me. It's as if he's put an invisible barrier between us. The silence is what kills me the most. We haven't really talked about it. I've tried to act like nothing happened, preparing dinner, telling him about my day, making small jokes. He responds, but without the same warmth as before. He's polite, kind, but he's no longer the same Dave. And now I'm the one who misses him. I miss his hugs, his kisses, his caresses. I miss him looking at me with that sparkle in his eyes, telling me how beautiful I am for no reason. I miss feeling desired, but I don't know how to approach him or what to say. I'm embarrassed to ask him to touch me again after telling him his affection made me uncomfortable. I feel like any attempt to fix it will sound fake, as if I'm only looking for him now because he's pulled away. I've thought about apologizing, but I don't know how to do it without it sounding empty. I don't want him to think I'm only doing it out of physical need. The truth is, it hurts me to have hurt him. It hurts me to see that part of him I loved so much fade away. I don't know if this is normal, if it's a natural consequence of what happened, or if there's no going back. I'm scared by the idea that one night of tiredness and harsh words has broken something that can't be repaired. Sometimes I stare at the sofa where he slept those 2 weeks and I feel like crying. He's still kind, still helps me with everything, still cooks, still asks if I slept well or if I've eaten. But there's a new coldness, as if he's doing all that out of habit now, not out of love. And the worst part is that somehow I feel like I deserve it. Update. Hi, I'm Lilith. Thanks to those who read me and left comments on my previous post. I didn't expect so much understanding or so many messages of support. I read each one, and many made me reflect on the way I communicated with Dave and what he probably felt at that moment. I want to tell you how everything has been this last week. After those 2 weeks where he didn't touch me or come near me more than necessary, I felt I couldn't continue like this. The distance was becoming unbearable. I saw him every day. We ate together, talked about everyday things, but the connection between us had died out. It was like we lived together, but were no longer a couple, just two people sharing a space. For several days I thought about how to break that ice. I didn't want to force it, but I also knew that if I didn't say anything, that distance would become permanent. So one night, while we were having dinner, I gathered the courage and spoke to him. "Dave," I said without looking directly at him, "I want you to know you can touch me again if you want. You don't have to worry about what I said that time. I'm truly sorry. I was tired, stressed, and I said horrible things. I didn't mean it." He looked up for a moment and observed me with an expression difficult to read. He wasn't upset, but he didn't seem relieved either. He just looked at me for a few seconds, then nodded slowly and replied, "It's okay, Lilith." And that was it. He didn't say anything else. There was no hug, no, I miss you too. Just that, it's okay, so brief, so neutral, that it left an emptiness in my chest. I thought that with time he'd slowly come closer again, but it hasn't happened. 7 days have passed since that conversation and nothing changed. He's still kind, still does the same things as always. He makes me coffee in the mornings, asks if I've eaten, gives me a quick kiss before going to work, but there's not a single display of desire. It's as if he's erased from himself all that affectionate and physical part that used to characterize him. And that's breaking me. Before, any minimal gesture of mine made him react. If I passed by him and brushed his arm, if I hugged him from behind, if I sat on his lap, or simply if I looked at him with a flirtatious smile, he'd immediately light up. Sometimes we even joked about it. I'd tell him, "You're like an on button." And he'd laugh and reply, "I just can't help it. You're my weakness." And now nothing. I can pass by him, hug him, or brush against him, and there's no reaction, neither physical nor emotional. He looks at me, smiles a little, but his gaze no longer has that sparkle, that desire, that spark that I used to see so clearly, and that scares me. Last night something happened that left me even more confused. He had returned to sleeping in bed with me, but always on his side, without touching me. So last night I decided to try to get a little closer. I didn't want to force it, just give him a sign that I was ready to fix things, that I wanted to be close to him again. I waited for him to lie down. He was looking at his phone like every night. I slowly approached, snuggled up next to him, and put my hand on his chest. He looked at me, smiled a little, and stroked my hair, as he used to do before, but his touch was very soft, almost distant. Then, without thinking too much, I guided his hand towards my breasts. I did it with tenderness, trying to make him feel that I needed him, that I wanted to reconnect with him. For a moment I thought everything was going well. He smiled a little more, but something in his gaze disconcerted me. It wasn't desire, it was more like sadness. And then I realized something that hit me like a stone. Nothing. There was no physical reaction in him, nothing of what used to happen before. Before, a caress or a kiss was enough for his body to respond instantly. It was something that even made me laugh, because he himself used to joke about how easy it was to provoke him. But this time nothing happened. His body was completely still. I tried to hide my surprise and said with a nervous smile, "What's wrong, love?" He remained silent for a few seconds, looked away, and then said in a low voice, "I'm sorry, I'm a bit tired. That's all. I think we should sleep." I stood motionless. I didn't say anything, I just felt and turned over, pretending it hadn't affected me. But as soon as I turned off the light, tears started flowing uncontrollably. I don't know how to describe what I felt. It wasn't just sadness, it was a mix of fear, guilt, and shame. I felt I had destroyed something that couldn't be recovered. Throughout the night, I kept thinking about his words, about the tone with which he said them. He wasn't irritated, nor annoyed, nor distant. He sounded hurt, and that broke my soul. Today, while he was at work, I started remembering everything I said to him that night. "You're a pervert. Your way of showing affection disgusts me. It makes me uncomfortable." I repeated them in my head, and each one hurt more than the last. I don't know how I could say that to the person who has loved me so much. I know I was tired, that I didn't say it out of hatred, but that doesn't undo the damage because those words aren't forgotten. And now I fear they've left such a deep wound that there's no way to heal it. I've noticed that even the way he looks at me has changed. Before, when our eyes met, I saw love, desire, tenderness. Now I see caution. It's as if he's measuring every gesture, as if he fears that any display of affection could bother me again. And that hurts me more than everything else because I know I made him feel that way. I've read a lot about how men can also feel deeply rejected by words like those, especially when their love language is physical contact. And I think that's exactly what was happening with Dave. Physical contact was his language. It was his way of saying, "I love you," and I completely invalidated it. I told him his love disgusted me. How do you heal something like that? Since that night, he hasn't just distanced himself physically, but emotionally too. He talks less, avoids deep conversations. When I hug him, he responds, but not with the same energy. He no longer kisses me for no reason, nor touches me on impulse. Even when he watches a movie with me, he sits at a safe distance, as if he's still afraid of making me uncomfortable. And I, in silence, miss him more than ever. I don't know how to apologize to him in a way that doesn't sound empty. I don't know whether to talk directly or let time do its part, but I'm afraid that time, instead of healing, will only finish erasing what we had. I look at myself in the mirror and start asking myself things that hurt me. Does he no longer find me attractive? Did I break something in him? Has his desire faded forever? Sometimes I think if he'd yelled or argued with me that night, it would be easier. But he didn't. His silence was worse. It was like watching something inside him break in silence, without reproaches, without anger, just a soft but definitive closing. Today, while folding clothes, I found a t-shirt of his that he used to wear to sleep. I smelled it and started to cry. Not out of physical nostalgia, but because I remembered how happy I was when everything seemed so simple, when he hugged me without fear and I received him without feeling overwhelmed, when there were no distances, no silences, no guilt. I know many will say I have to talk to him again, that communication is key and maybe they're right, but I don't want to pressure him. I don't want him to feel I'm only looking for him because I realized what I lost. I want him to feel that I truly love him and that I'm willing to mend what I broke. That's why I'm here writing again, because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to show him I'm sorry without hurting him more. I don't know how to tell him I miss him without sounding selfish. I don't know how to touch him without it seeming like I'm seeking his forgiveness through my body. I just know I love him and it hurts me to see him like this. It hurts me to see that his gaze no longer lights up when he sees me. It hurts me to remember how happy he was every time he hugged me and to know that I was the one who taught him to contain that affection. And I'm afraid, very afraid, that this is the beginning of the end. That's why I ask for advice. How can I fix something like this? How can I make him trust me again? Make him feel free to show me love as before? Or is there no going back? Update. Several weeks have passed since my last post. It was very hard to decide whether to write this update, but I feel I need to do it to let it all go. Things with Dave not only didn't get better, they ended in the worst possible way. After telling what had happened here, I tried to follow the advice I was given, to be patient, give him time, show him affection without pressuring him. I really tried, but the silence, the distance, and the coldness between us kept growing day by day. It was like living with a ghost. I saw him come and go, follow his routines, talk to me politely but without a soul. There were no more kisses, no hugs, no laughs. Just automatic gestures, and that absence of warmth was consuming me. One day I decided to tell my friends what was happening. We met at Sol's apartment, the same one who months ago had told me I was lucky to have such a passionate boyfriend. When I finished telling them everything, there was an awkward silence. I expected some empathy, maybe some idea to get closer to him, but their reactions were very different. Sol was the first to speak. "Friend, I don't want to be cruel, but don't you think it's weird for a man to change like that out of nowhere?" she said, crossing her arms. "I mean, from having sex almost every day to not wanting to touch you at all." I tried to defend him. "I don't know, I think I hurt him a lot." He still feels hurt by what I said, but another of my friends, Clara, intervened with a more direct tone. "Lilith, don't fool yourself. When men feel rejected, they often look for someone else. Maybe he felt hurt and went event with someone else." I stayed quiet. I didn't want to think that, but their words pierced me like needles. Sol nodded and added, "Yes, friend, I'm sorry to say it, but most likely Dave has already tried another woman. Maybe after you told him that night, he distanced himself and sought comfort in someone else. That's how all men are. When they're rejected, they look for validation elsewhere." I didn't want to believe it. I tried to defend him, but their words began to repeat themselves over and over in my head. What if it was true? What if that coldness wasn't sadness but guilt? What if the reason he no longer touched me was because he'd already found another skin to touch? That idea crushed me. That night I couldn't sleep. I imagined Dave with another woman, kissing her, touching her, looking at her with those same eyes he used to look at me with. I thought of him looking for her, of her responding to him with that passion he now denied me. I cried so much I lost my voice, and the next day, blinded by rage, pain, and insecurity, I decided to confront him. It wasn't a planned moment, it was pure impulse. He had just arrived from work. He was taking off his shoes when I walked into the living room. Without even thinking, I blurted out, "Tell me the truth, Dave. Who's the other woman?" He looked at me confused. "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb," I yelled, feeling my voice crack. "You're cheating on me, aren't you? What a coincidence that right after that fight you stopped looking for me. You surely went with some little whore from your job. Tell me, why didn't you want to do anything with me the other night? What does she have that I don't?" The words came out on their own between screams and tears. I wasn't reasoning. Dave remained silent for a few seconds, motionless, without even trying to defend himself. He looked at me with a mix of surprise and sadness, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Lilith," he finally said in a low voice, "calm down, there's no other woman." "Lie," I yelled. "Don't take me for a fool." "There's no one else," he repeated, remaining calm. "I just don't know. I felt a little bad about what you said. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. It hurt me a lot that you called me a pervert. All this time I've had that insecurity of whether I was touching you too much or making you feel bad. But you always responded with affection, and that reassured me. After what you said, I felt very bad, very insecure." His words disarmed me. I kept crying, but no longer out of rage, but out of guilt. "For God's sake, Dave, it was just something I didn't think about. You're overreacting," I told him through sobs. He kept looking at me. His expression changed completely. His face, which until that moment had shown only sadness, hardened. "So, you think that? That I'm overreacting?" he asked in a serious tone. I remained silent, trying to retract. "I didn't mean that," I stammered. But it was too late. Dave sighed, ran a hand over his face, and said with a calm that chilled my blood, "You know what? I don't think this is going anywhere." I saw him walk towards the closet. He opened the door and started taking out his clothes. I ran to him desperately. "Dave, no, please don't go. We can fix it. It was a misunderstanding. I was just hurt, confused." He didn't look at me. He kept putting things in his suitcase without saying anything. "There's no point in staying together, Lilith." His voice sounded exhausted. "I don't want to continue in something where I constantly feel judged for the way I love. It hurts, it really hurts, but I can't keep feeling like this." I tried to hug him, but he gently pulled away. "Please, don't touch me," he told me. And those words were like a blow. He didn't yell, he didn't insult me, he didn't reproach me for anything. He just packed his things, gave me one last sad look, and left. The door closed, and with it everything we had. That was a month ago. Since then I haven't heard from him. He hasn't blocked me, but he hasn't written either. There are no messages, no calls, no trace of him on my social media. It's as if he's disappeared. And although at first I looked for him, now I understand he needs space. Or maybe he just decided to move on. The first day without him was hell. The apartment felt empty. I couldn't look at his side of the bed without my chest hurting. His cup, his brush, his jacket hanging behind the door. Everything became a reminder of what I lost due to an impulsive reaction. I spent the first few weeks blaming him, thinking it was unfair he left like that, without giving me a chance to fix it. But then I started to understand. I pushed him away myself. I was the one who hurt him, who called him a pervert, who made him feel ashamed of loving in his own way. And the worst part is that when he tried to explain his pain, I invalidated him again. I called him an exaggerator, precisely when he was being most honest and vulnerable. He didn't leave out of pride, he left because he no longer had strength. I've thought a lot about how a single phrase can change the course of a relationship. Sometimes we believe that words are carried away by the wind, but it's not like that. Words remain, they pierce the mind and the heart. And sometimes there's no way to erase them. I've spent entire nights remembering his voice, his gestures, his way of looking at me, and I realized that everything he did, the hugs, the kisses, the closeness, were his way of saying, "I love you." I interpreted it as something excessive, as a burden, when in reality it was his love language. Now I understand that what bothered me wasn't him, but my own tiredness, my stress, my lack of balance, but I took it out on him. I've learned a painful lesson. Sometimes it's not the great betrayal or routine that destroys a relationship, but the small wounds, the words said at the worst moment. And when you hurt the heart of someone who only wanted to love you, there are damages that can't be repaired. I don't know if I'll ever talk to Dave again. Maybe not. Maybe he'll find someone who feels comfortable with his way of loving, who doesn't make him feel ashamed of his affection. And I just hope I can forgive myself because I love him and because I lost someone who in his own way was only trying to show me the same.